So we're covering the Diary of Wimpy Kid films. I've already covered what I considered great or even good from this series, and I guess it's time to start looking into the bads of the series. So first off, let's look into Diary of the Wimpy Kid The Long Haul this week. So let's just get right into it. This film released in 2017 and is a road trip film that was both written and directed by David Bowers, who directed the previous two films, with some help in the script by the original book's author, Jeff Kinney. It is officially taglined as a sequel to the original films, while being the fourth live-action film of this series, but since I'm a salty fanboy of the original films, I headcanon this as a reboot. So let's just think of this as a reboot, because I make the rules here, okay? Anyways, it is based on the ninth book of the series, with elements of the 7th, 8th and 10th books also put in. It also is the first film not to feature the original cast members, as most outgrew their original roles. The film would turn out to actually be one of the last projects produced by 20th Century Fox, before the studio was acquired by Disney in 2019, with it being overall the last live-action Diary of Wimpy Kid film, and then the series started to be an animated film series on Disney+, which started in 2021, but we're going a bit ahead ourselves. Moving back to this film, it follows Greg once again trying to enjoy a summer of just playing video games, hanging out with friends, and even this time wanting to watch YouTube. However, his mother, Susan, once again has other plans, where she forces the family to go on a road trip for a relative's birthday party. However, Greg starts to see an opportunity when he realises a gaming convention is near to where they are heading, and his favourite YouTuber Mac Digby will be there. But I'll recast him with Jason Frucker as Greg, Alicia Silverstone as Susan, Tom Everett Scott as Rank his dad, Charlie Wright as Roderick his older brother, Dylan and Wyatt Walters playing Manny his younger brother, Owen Asaltos as Rowley Jefferson his best friend, Joshua Hoover as Mac Digby, Christopher A. Cowper as Mr. Beardo, who is essentially the villain of this film, and Minnie Goard as Meemaw, the relative they are visiting. Initially in 2012, the release year of Dog Days, it was said this would be the last live-action film of the franchise. However, the same year in August, during the press for the film, Kinney, along with the original actors Zachary Gordon and Robert Capron, did repeat the same thing. They said a full film wasn't completely out of the picture. 2 years later, the author replied to questions about another sequel in a YouTube video, stating that there was no films in development, but at the same time, who knows what could happen in the future. When again being asked the same question, Gordon had gone on to say he felt that Dog Days would be simply the last, due to them aging, and how the whole point of the books is that they kept being around the same age. Kinney, however, did have an idea of creating an animated film rather than a live-action film, specifically being based on the Cabin Fever book, with him saying in an interview it could have made a really good TV special. However, it seems his wishes did not work out when in 2016 it was announced a new live-action film based on The Long Haul was in development and would feature an entirely new cast. The film was released on May 17, 2017 in the Philippines, and then 2 days later on May 19th it was released in the US and finally released in the UK on May 26. The film was then released digitally on Amazon Video and iTunes on August 1st and was then released physically on August 8th. Overall, it made $2.6 million from home video release, and overall made $40.1 million overall from the release of the home media and the theatrical release. Critically, Rotten Tomatoes gave the film a 17% based on 72 reviews. Metacritic gave it a 39 out of 100 based on 16 reviews, which made it a financial and critical failure. I will say this film is bad, being a massive letdown compared to the originals, but I would still say it's not as terrible as some people make it out to be. It's still, well, watchable. But for real, I feel a pretty average Diary of a Wimpy Kid film was wrote here, and to be honest, even with it being a fourth to the originals and being used as a newly casted version of the family, they should have really still tried to introduce the characters a lot more here rather than making new visitors just expect to know who these characters really are. Because yes, it's a new cast, but at the same time I feel like this was a new generation come to these films as well, and honestly, from my experience growing up, they didn't particularly advertise this as being a sequel, they just advertised it as simply being a film. To the point where even to today, I thought this was a reboot and still consider it as a reboot, But now knowing that it was actually technically meant to be a fourth, it really baffles me, to be honest. I also could see why a couple of people were casted here, but unfortunately the direction clearly wasn't good enough to help these actors try to compare to the old cast who were originally perfectly cast in their roles. But then this was made 5 years after the original third film, which already shown the younger cast aging, so recasting obviously made sense. I do think this is bad but rewatchable. I now know that this was meant to be a fourth film again, but the more change that they made, they might as well have just done a reboot starting with a later book. I give this a 1.5 out of 5 or a 3 out of 10. So that was me go briefly over Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul. Yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of this one, but again, I feel like some people took this too far. I especially did take this a bit too far back in the day with the whole hashtag not my erotic trend, which I still technically agree with. But at the end of the day, I do think people like Greg and Susan were actually quite well casted. Alicia Silverstone is a great actress, and I know the kid Greg, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, even though I said it early in the video. Yes, the script's in my video, obviously. But he's been in films like Bumblebee, etc., and he's been good in them. I don't know what happened because David Bowers did two great films. He did Roger Cruels, which was my favourite Diary of a Wimpy Kid live action film, and Dog Days was also really good. But here, even with him partnering up with Jeff Kinney, the author, something clearly went wrong here. I'm possibly thinking maybe the way they writ it, they more writ it like the books, because as I've mentioned in the last week's video, it did feel like the original movies very much took the books and put them into more of a movie structure to where they could develop their characters. But here, it just really wasn't it. But yeah, that was my brief thoughts on the film, along with some brief information about the production and the speculation around it. Honestly, there wasn't too much I could find, but yeah, I'll be covering the two new live-action Diary of a Wimpy Kid films that have come out in the last 2 years, 2021 film and then the Roger Cruels one from 2022. So yeah, I'll see you next week.